The oceans are places of wonder. Blue Planet 2 showed us the beauty and extraordinary behavior of marine life, whilst highlighting how fragile and threatened our seas have become.
Now, as Blue Planet Live carries out a health check on the world's oceans, we are staying closer to home.
Our British seas are rich, varied, and key to our island heritage. But how are our lifestyles affecting them?
We'll meet the unsung heroes dedicated to protecting our waters and the wildlife that relies on them.
If we don't look after nature, nobody else will.
And celebrate the scientists striving for solutions to the challenges.
Whoa.
Plus, we'll meet the crabs with a flair for style.
They're dressing up in seaweed as a means of camouflaging themselves.
And delve into our very own deep-sea coral reefs.
This is the most important deep-sea coral, I think, in the whole world. And this is just off Scotland.
So dip into our UK waters and see them like you've never seen them before.
Welcome to Blue Planet UK. Hello and welcome to Blue Planet UK, and it really is blue today. But whatever the weather, there's some amazing things to explore in our oceans.
There certainly are, and today I'm pleased to say we're back in my old stomping ground, Kent, or more specifically, the picture-perfect Victorian seaside resort that is Herne Bay. Not only is it a place steeped in history, the marine life here is one of the best.
So while the Blue Planet Live team have been carrying out a health check on the world's oceans, we are sticking closer to home, where there are plenty of incredible stories.
There certainly are, and this is what's coming up today. How spiny dogfish have taken a battering because of our love for fish and chips. Who would have thought that underneath that lovely crispy batter could be a kind of shark?
I discover how British science may offer a lifeline to Australia's Great Barrier Reef.
This is beautiful.
Yeah, this is Southeast London's coral reef.
I love science experiments. I soak up the science as I find out how washing our clothes can cause a plastic problem.
We're finding a lot of fibres in the marine environment, and we're finding them in marine creatures as well.
And we joined the Blue Planet Live team as they descend into the unexplored depths of Costa Rica.
You know what, Gillian? It seems like us Brits enjoy nothing more than finding a nice spot in the sun on the coast and tucking in to the humble fish and chips.
Well, you know, the great British tradition of fish and chips originated in the 19th century, but the chip originated from Belgium, le pomme frites, and fish came from Spain, pescado frito. Who'd have thought it?
Doesn't sound that British at all. When did this simple supper land in Britain? I've been investigating. Fish and chips first appeared on our high streets way back in the 1860s and fast became a firm favourite for the nation. So much so that it was one of the few foods that wasn't rationed during World War II. I usually go for cod or plaice myself, but there's always plenty of other whitefish on offer, although some varieties may not be quite what you were expecting. Who would have thought that underneath that lovely crispy batter could be a kind of shark? But you wouldn't have seen shark advertised on any chippy menus. The industry has been using different names for decades to make the fish in the dish more palatable for the public.
Rock salmon, rock, huss, rig, flake, these are all traditional names for shark in the UK.
Dr. Andrew Griffiths of Exeter University has been researching the use of shark products in the UK. Andrew and his team have trawled fish and chip shops up and down the nation and brought fish suppers back to the lab for DNA testing.
We analysed around about 89 fish and chip samples. And what we discovered is that over 90% of the samples that we analysed were actually identified as spiny dogfish.
Spiny dogfish were once one of the world's most abundant shark, but our taste for it has led to numbers being decimated. Now endangered in the Northeast Atlantic, the EU has banned targeted fishing since 2010. But the UK waters are still no safe haven. Spiny dogfish have a low reproductive rate, meaning their numbers are slow to increase. Like many fish, they shoal together for protection. But this behaviour is the species' downfall, because when they get caught accidentally, it's in devastating numbers. However, there are people trying to help. I'm joining the team from Shark Stuff who are attempting to tag spiny dogfish, headed by Georgia French.
They're there somewhere, but you've got to land over the shoal, get on top of them and find them.
Exactly.
It's hoped that by tagging the spiny dogfish, they will be able to identify their favourite marine habitats in the hope of making them protected sites to safeguard the species in the future. The team will be using specialised equipment to assess the size of specimens in the water. The I'll be honest, I can't pronounce its name.
Using the stereophotogrammetry equipment, we're getting measurements of sharks in the water. With big sharks, one of the worst things you can do is take them out of the water, but it's important that you do know how big they are, so we want to come up with a method where you can do that in the water.
We're getting bites, not spiny dogfish, but another type of shark, spotted catfish to be precise. And they're small enough to land safely and take manual measurements from, which will help judge the accuracy of the equipment.
Perfect. Bye, Boobs. So that's actually quite a cool defence mechanism where they curl up like that. In South Africa, they've got species they call shy sharks because they're supposed to hide like under their tail and they curl up.
As well as small spotted catfish, the equipment is also picking up spotted ray, a close relative of the shark, and a conger eel, even a dolphin.
No spiny dogfish yet, but it's fishing, isn't it? There's no guarantees.
One man who knows the challenges of sea fishing better than most is Paul Burridge. He's an angler, not a scientist, but is more than happy to offer his expertise to the cause.
Yeah, there's something on there. Little un. Got a nipper.
About 5 years ago, I started fishing large sharks and found it interesting that the amount of information to be gained from the scientific community as well as fishermen being out here on the boat, it's all worked hand in hand.
Well, unfortunately, it looks like we're going to go back without a spiny dogfish today, but are you surprised?
Catching any fish on cue is always a bit of a red herring, really. It's quite hard work. But there's not a lot of them around. They are under threat, and when there's not many of them, it's a needle in a haystack.
What I really want to ask you about on this is how important you feel from a fisherman's side of things, the stuff that Shark Stuff are doing.
I love their ethos. You know, it's education, and most anglers, especially big fish anglers, don't want to harm their catch. And if we can show the data to say, this is a better way of doing it, this is how we suggest things are done, it's important.
We haven't been lucky on this expedition, but organisations like Shark Stuff are providing hope for the spiny dogfish. And scientists like Andrew want to see changes in legislation.
It'd be much more useful to have clearer labelling, which becomes much more tied to a very small number of species or a single species, which would allow the consumer to know exactly what they're buying.
If we embrace adaptations like these, we can make informed decisions and carry on enjoying our fish and chip suppers without harming our sharks.
So how can we enjoy a 150-year-old British tradition without harming our fish stocks? Well, the Marine Conservation Society have a good fish guide, where you can see which fish species are the most sustainable, the green rated, and the least sustainable, the red rated. There's loads more information on the website.
Very often it's the scale of the fishing that's the issue. And there's a lot of smaller companies that just aren't finding it viable to compete against the bigger outfits. But there's one lone fisherman in Devon that's trying to keep alive the tradition.
For centuries, the seas around Britain have provided a livelihood for coastal communities. Hope Cove is one of these historically vibrant fishing villages. In the 1930s, there were more than 30 men fishing from here. But times have changed. Centuries-old traditions and the heritage of a Devon fishing village are on the brink of being lost forever. Over the years, one by one, the fishermen have left, and now only one man remains.
My name is David Morgan. I'm the last full-time fisherman living in Hope Cove. If you're in fishing, you have to work every day that presents an opportunity for you to go fishing. I mean, our day typically starts at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and if you're not prepared to do that, then don't entertain the idea of going fishing. We normally arrive at the first fleet of the pots anytime between 5:30 and 6 o'clock in the morning, and we would haul maybe 500-600 pots continuously until about 2:30-3 o'clock in the afternoon. In the winter, the weather on average might affect us to the extent where we don't go to sea for perhaps 2 or 3 weeks. The long-term decline is due largely to the fact that it's no longer possible to earn a decent living from small-scale fishing. Over the last 10 or 15 years, the value of crab in real terms has gone down considerably. The crew don't live in Hope Cove. I would go so far as to say that it would be impossible to find any crew in Hope Cove, and that's been the case for many, many years. The resident local population is just getting smaller and smaller and smaller, to the extent now where in the winter you've barely got a community of people here at all. It's very interesting that when we were young lads, there were many of us that couldn't wait to jump aboard a fishing boat and find out about fishing. But I don't see that happening at all anymore. I cannot see the fishing industry in Hope Cove ever returning to anything like it was 50, 60 years ago. There's nothing to say that small-scale fisheries shouldn't succeed, but you've got to be very efficient at what you do. It's very difficult to compete with the larger players in the market. I don't see too many coming into the industry at all. No.
It's a poignant story that young filmmaker Nick Adams captures perfectly, and it's one that's representative of many of our fishing villages. But there are some marine communities that are bouncing back, so I went to go and find out more. I've come to Weymouth to meet Charlotte Bolton. She's part of a national drive to survey our seas and has a passion for a spectacular shellfish, the spiny lobster. What on earth is a spiny lobster?
It's like a lobster. It
But
has
spiny.
spines, but spiny.
All right, okay.
And it lacks the big pincers, and it has stripy antenna. So it tends
Okay,
to
right.
lurk in the reef.
And they've had a pretty rough time of it in the past, haven't they?
Oh yes, spiny lobsters were effectively extinct in this country. Basically, they were fished out in the 70s and 80s, and we just didn't see them at all. So that was a combination of commercial fishing pressures and also divers. Divers have to take their share of the blame here because they were also responsible for collecting them, and we simply didn't see them.
So it's really nothing to do with it being predated on or anything to do with the environment, but it was purely overfishing.
It's us. It's us. The apex predator is to blame again, unfortunately. Yes. And I think, I mean, they're incredibly valuable because there are so few of them. But we are seeing them coming back. And last year we saw them here in Dorset, which was amazing. As a local diver, it's really exciting to know that they are back in our local waters.
So what on earth has brought around all this change for them?
If we're honest, we don't really know. It might be one of these big planetary, sort of ocean systems. The Atlantic Decadal Oscillation has been mentioned. Who knows? Is it the warming seas? We don't really know.
And I suppose that's one of the things, isn't it? There's so much going on with our oceans at the moment, man-driven and otherwise, that it's hard to be able to put your finger on why things might be changing.
Yes, and it's so complicated out there. You think, one little thing changes and then that knock-on effect, there's this whole web of life. We just don't know, and that's what, for me, makes it really exciting. Yeah.
But whatever that change is, to have spiny lobster back on the shores of Britain is fantastic,
yes,
isn't it?
It is. As a diver, I love them. You can hear me finding them underwater because I get all high-pitched and I squeal. They are really exciting to find. I don't think I'd ever get bored of it. It's not all doom and gloom, some of it is, but there are plenty of, good news stories out there, which is really exciting.
I love a story like that. And look at the passion Charlotte's got.
It is amazing, but I have an even bigger news story for you. Steve, listen to this.
Well, that's a bit different, isn't it? What am I listening to there?
That is the very first minke whale to have been recorded off the east coast of Scotland.
No way, how cool is that?
It is very. The minke whale is one of the largest marine species that regularly visits the Scottish coast, but it's secretive and unpredictable, which means much of its behaviour remains a mystery. They can grow up to 8 or even 10 metres in length, but are hard to track because of their behaviour. Unlike humpback whales and dolphins, they don't display when they come to the surface. The Scottish Association for Marine Science and Marine Scotland Science are thrilled to have captured that audio, and it is the beginning of hopefully learning more about these really mysterious animals.
And to be finding out that kind of thing is really groundbreaking, isn't it? Now, before Chris Packham headed off to Mexico for Blue Planet Live, he caught up with a biologist that has dedicated his career to looking at some of the wildlife that lives on our British coasts.
Today I've come to meet a man called Paul Naylor, and I like him. He applies classic naturalist values, enhanced skills in observation, only he does it in the marine environment. And another thing I like is that he's content to work with common species, but he wants to know not just the species, but individuals, and learn about their personalities. Paul, what is it that lured you in there in the first place?
When the conditions are right and you can get in there and see the animals that are living there, you just find amazing characters.
Yeah, but hold on, we've got some perfectly good animals on land.
Yeah, but we see them all the time. The ones in the sea are less familiar to us.
And one of those animals you've got to know is the tompot blenny. And this is a familiar species to anyone who's had their toe in rocky rock pools and just offshore, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a very close relative of the common blenny or shanny, which is that small greeny brown fish that people all know in rock pools so well. what's so, I mean, I think apart from them looking...
It's a very sort of early 70s glam rock fish, isn't it?
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, they look great. And then from a study point of view, what's so brilliant about them is that they have these individual skin markings and you can recognise them. So you can follow an individual. And this is a rogues gallery on one particular reef.
These are
that
your
we study.
blenny friends
Yep.
that you've got to know as individual animals, and that gives you a lot more empowerment to study them.
Absolutely. For a start, you can find out how long a male, because they're territorial, the males, how long they keep territories.
Well, go on, tell me. You know, I would imagine a fish like this, 2 or 3 years seasonally.
Certainly up to 5 years. A male, 5 years, a male will keep the same territory.
OK, I know you've got some footage here that you've shot of some of your blennies. Let's have a look at this. What's going on?
Well, what's happening here is this is a female and she's laying eggs, and behind is one of the territorial males, and appearing is what we thought was another female. But when we looked very close up later, we found that you could just see the glands underneath it that make it a male.
But this male has snuck in, presumably to try and fertilise some of the female's eggs.
Exactly.
Which is a strategy that we see in all sorts of other animals.
Exactly. But never before in the tompot blenny, before these sets of observations.
And this is not a one-off, you've seen this repeatedly.
Absolutely, and just there he seems to have sussed it out enough he chases him.
Do you know what's striking about this is that just out there, literally a few metres off the beach, this new behaviour's now only being uncovered.
Exactly.
What else have we got?
Another animal is spiny spider crab. Now, all around our coast, this was filmed near Torquay, and groups of them come together and they go through what's called the pubertal molt, where they emerge from their old armour as adults. But what we didn't realise was that when they've got this new armour, they need to camouflage it again. And it's quite an intricate process. They rub each piece of seaweed on the spines on their backs until it sticks.
So they're dressing up in seaweed as a means of camouflaging themselves. Maybe they've evolved the spines specifically to make it possible to attach the seaweed.
So, because in between the big spines there are these tiny curved hooks, which I think is what the seaweed attaches to. And those hooks look just like Velcro. They're hooked on Velcro.
Nice.
So the spider crab invented Velcro.
What about that? But Paul, you don't have to be a diver to access marine life. I mean, rock pools are full of similar species, aren't they?
Absolutely. Yes, look into any rock pool and you can see animals going about their lives.
And if you move things around, it is an animal's home. I mean, it could be a blenny's territory or a shanny's territory.
Exactly. So
Put it back. And then safety, a little bit of concern. If we're going rock pooling, check the tide times. Good stout footwear, Wellingtons, that sort of stuff. And if you're a young person, make sure your parents know where you are.
Absolutely.
That's the key thing. But look, I have to say thank you very much. It's been an absolute eye-opener. Just out there, I've been looking at badgers and birds. They don't dress themselves up in weed. Amazing, absolutely amazing.
And you can see Chris and the team on Blue Planet Live tonight when they take another look to see how healthy the world's oceans really are.
And the health of the oceans, or not, a lot of it is down to us. And although we're very aware of the problems with single-use plastics, who knew the clothes you wear can make such an impact? The UK puts on a staggering 7 billion washes a year. So with that in mind, anything that indicates they're causing plastic pollution is a big deal. I'm visiting a lab at the International Marine Litter Research Unit in Plymouth, where Richard Thompson and PhD student Imogen Napper have been researching how washing our clothes can end up with synthetics in our seas. Wow, you know, when you said lab, this isn't quite what I was expecting. This looks more like a laundrette.
It feels a bit like that sometimes, but actually it is a lab. What we're trying to do here is quantify how many fibres are coming off everyday items of clothing when you wash them.
Because a lot of people don't know that our clothes are made out of plastic, and this can be polyester, acrylic or natural synthetic blends. And when it's swishing and swirling around in the washing machine, tiny fibres can come off and go down the wastewater and potentially into our oceans.
We know that we're finding a lot of fibres in the marine environment. We're finding them in the deep sea, we're finding them in Arctic sea ice, and we're finding them in marine creatures as well.
To find out what kind of fibres are making their way into our oceans, we're going to run a test on 3 different fabrics.
So we've got 100% acrylic jumper, 100% polyester jumper, and then a blend of polyester and cotton.
Different colours means different fibres, and you just use that all the time.
Yeah.
See, there was me just thinking you're separating your lights and darks.
I love science experiments. Never been so excited about washing. Each item gets washed on an identical cycle with the same detergent at the same temperature. The water from the outlet pipes is filtered to collect any fibres that would have gone down the drain, and whatever is found is dried in a Petri dish. Each sample has come from just one item of clothing after a single wash, and the next step is to take a closer look under the microscope.
OK, so first one I can see is blue, and that was the hoodie, wasn't it?
Yep, this is the blue hoodie, and this was polyester cotton blend. This is all of the fluff that we extracted from that one hoodie in one wash.
That is unreal, isn't it? Because normally I'd look at that as fluff, but I don't think about what the fluff is made up of.
Yeah, so this is plastic fluff, well, polyester and cotton. And some past research that we did showed that for a typical wash, on average, about 130,000 fibres can come off a polyester cotton blend wash.
And how many washes did you get this average from?
I did over 200 hours of washes.
Oh my word. So you really do know your blue hoodies and the fluff that comes off them.
I know this very well.
OK, all right. So moving on, what else have we got?
So then the next one that we had was the fluffy black jumper. And this was made out of polyester. Different material, completely plastic this time. It's a big tangled mess.
That looks so different.
For a typical wash, up to 500,000 fibres could come off in one wash. So 3 times more than the polyester cotton blend.
Wow, all right. And we've still got another one yet, so number 3.
So the next one was the beige jumper.
That was made of?
Acrylic. Hardest to see because it's beige. But in our past research, we showed that up to 700,000 fibres could come off a typical clothes wash. So the most by quite a mile.
And that is all plastic?
Yep.
Oh my word.
These fibres could make their way through the sewage treatment works and into our oceans, making it a big plastic soup.
So it really is a one-way street, isn't it? Once the plastics are in there, it's very hard to get such small plastics out again. So what's the answer then? I just stop wearing acrylic, I guess?
Well, it's really not that easy. Even though in our research we've shown that acrylic sheds the most fibres, it can depend how the clothes are made, how they're woven. So we need to look right down to the beginning of the manufacturing stage so we can stop them shedding fibres when we're washing them.
The devil really is in the detail with this, isn't it? At every stage of the clothes being manufactured to the way that they're washed.
It's very complex.
When it comes to sheddability, we can say the mixed fabric is bad, the polyester 3 times worse, and the acrylic by a country mile is bottom of the tops.
And these are the culprits here, the microfibres, the plastic fibres that come out the clothes, and there's no real solution to it yet, but it's all being looked into, and one option is to put together a textile that doesn't give off microfibres in the first place, and the other is to find a way to capture the microfibres before they make their way to the ocean.
And this is a prototype to do just that. It's a washing machine filter. The idea being that every single washing machine would be installed with one of these to capture all those microfibres, this microplastic pollution entering the environment. And it wouldn't just benefit the large marine mammals, it would benefit the tiny things as well, because even plankton is being affected by this microplastic pollution. And plankton is the cornerstone for every ocean ecosystem, as the One Show's Mike Dilger found out.
If someone said to you the greatest migration on Earth, what would you think of? Wildebeest crossing the Serengeti Plains? Caribou crossing the Arctic tundra? Nice guesses, but no, because it's plankton, and this amazing journey happens just off our shores. The animals that take part in this huge migration underpin all marine life in the British Isles. But for the most part, you will probably have never even seen them. I've come to the west coast of Scotland and the beautiful island of Mull to take a closer look at plankton, these tiny but incredibly important organisms. During the summer months, the seas off the British Isles transform, filling up with swirling patterns covering hundreds of square kilometres, which can even be seen from space. These patterns are in fact blooms of tiny plants called phytoplankton, most no bigger than a pinhead. These tiny plants are so numerous they produce over half the oxygen we breathe. They even give the sea its smell. And most importantly, they're the food of the creatures I've come to investigate today. I'm on a quest to find zooplankton, some of the weirdest animals on the planet. They're so small that if we want to find them, we need to look out for the predators that feed on them. Zooplankton make an incredible journey each day, moving between the surface waters where they feed and the dark depths where they're safe from predators. Some of these tiny individuals travel to depths of half a kilometre. This monumental feat by so many minuscule animals makes them part of the biggest migration on the planet. Here off the Hebrides, the upwelling waters, which are rich in nutrients, create a plankton hotspot. And in these waters off the coast of Tiree, it isn't long before we find what we're looking for. This is fabulous behaviour. We've got sand eel that feed on plankton, being pushed to the surface by bigger fish. And then we've got the birds piling in from the top and watching gannets diving from 25 to 30 metres up and slamming into the water. And they're feeding on big shoals of fish. And where there are fish, there are going to be huge plankton blooms. And that's what we want to see. Zooplankton may be amongst the most numerous animals on Earth, but catching them isn't easy. So we brought plankton professor David Pond to help us. With his specialist net system, we soon catch some of these marathon migrators while they're up at the surface feeding. And head back to the lab. David, this is a whole new world. So talk me through this very distinctive creature with what looks like a fantail and red in its body.
It's a really large copepod. It's about 7 millimetres long, and it's kind of the lion of the sea. It's carnivorous, and it basically eats all the other chaps.
There's one as well that's incredibly distinctive with long antennae that also has red running through its body, and this seems almost the most numerous.
It's found across the North Atlantic up into the Arctic. It's really important as a source of fish food for commercially important species. And you can see along here, running along the length of its body, you can see an oil sac, like lipid. It's fat, basically. Fish like herring and mackerel feed on these copepods in huge numbers and then transfers that lipid, that oil, into its tissues.
And that's the omega-3 that we need to eat for our own diet.
Absolutely.
It's incredible to think that the world's marine life is so reliant on such tiny animals. So the next time you're sitting down to a fish supper, remember, it's all down to the plankton.
Microscopic organisms are crucial to healthy ocean habitats like coral reefs.
Coral are affected by climate change, however, because as sea temperatures rise, it causes them to go white. It's called bleaching and can lead to the coral dying.
It's a really sobering sight, but I went to London to meet a scientist who thinks he may have come up with a solution.
Jamie Craggs of the Horniman Museum is leading the fight to save the world's coral. And this little piece of Australia's Great Barrier Reef holds the key.
Hello.
Nice to meet you. Oh my goodness. This is beautiful.
Yeah, this is Southeast London's coral reef.
That's incredible. So this is where all the action happens.
Absolutely, yeah. Reproduction is obviously the process that a species and population continues. So studying reproduction gives us that fundamental knowledge, but then getting them to reproduce is very difficult. So our work is focusing on triggering them to reproduce and understanding what happens in the wild
replicating that in aquariums.
Some of these individual corals are special because they're genetically resistant to coral bleaching. It's hoped their offspring can help save the world's dying reefs. But breeding coral is easier said than done.
These corals only spawn over just a couple of nights a year, so there's a very small window of time to get the material you need for your experiments.
Coral spawning is triggered by a precise combination of day length, water temperature, and the phase of the moon. To get coral to breed in the lab, all these conditions must be mirrored exactly.
So that's the sun. How do you replicate a moon?
We have 4 LED lights, and then a ping pong ball has been cut in half to act as a diffuser. And really importantly, 3 bits of sticky tape have been put over the top to make sure it's exactly the same amount of light as a full moon.
In the natural world, other creatures live amongst the coral, like sea urchins. These resilient little animals graze on algae, which can kill the coral if left unchecked.
So these are going to be like roommates or tank mates, I should say, with the corals.
Yeah, so we've got 4 different age groups here of urchins, and they each have their own use. So when they're nice and small, they're great with the baby corals. As they get older, we then move them in to control the algae in with our adult corals.
If the young corals are to feel at home, they need the sea urchins there too. And Jamie has a breeding program to maintain his supply of juvenile urchins.
This is all kicking off in here, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Oh my goodness.
We've got 5 males spawning, and then a female over here is producing
That's
eggs.
a huge, massive egg. That's incredible.
The Horniman Museum was the first institution in the world to successfully breed coral in captivity, and they filmed the magical moment it all began. Once the coral starts to spawn, the eggs and the sperm are collected so that Jamie can maximize the chances of fertilization.
While we can get the corals to spawn in a very planned way now, we can rear potentially hundreds of thousands of embryos. The next frontier, the next challenge for us is to get those hundreds of thousands of larvae to settle, grow into baby corals, and then have hundreds of thousands of corals.
As the coral grows, it's transplanted into tanks. Here, the team has come up with a novel way of monitoring their health.
I'm guessing these are here for a reason.
Yeah, if we use the light, the blue light in combination with the goggles, it allows us to highlight the fluorescence that are inside the corals.
That is beautiful. They glow. Why would coral need to fluoresce?
There's a lot of debate about it. One thought is the proteins, the fluorescent proteins, act as a sunscreen, a bit like suntan lotion for the corals, and it protects them against the harsh UV rays of the sun.
In successfully spawning, breeding, and growing coral, Jamie has made amazing progress. The next hurdle is to grow thousands of warm water tolerant coral and take them back into the oceans to help fortify our reefs against climate change.
That was a superb bit of research and hopefully will make a real difference. Tomorrow, we're going to be looking at British coral reefs, only in much deeper water.
And to help understand the challenges, our cameras followed the Blue Planet Live team as they delve down deep off the coast of Costa Rica.
So it's about 5 o'clock in the morning. We've been up since about 4:30. We're about 50 miles off the Pacific coast of Costa Rica. As you can probably see, we're just about to rendezvous with the RV Atlantis.
The Atlantis is a scientific research vessel carrying some very special cargo.
We are filming with Eric Cordes, who is the leader of this expedition, to a series of seamounts that have never been explored before. What they're going to find, who knows?
These underwater mountains rise from the ocean's floor, but their peaks never break the water's surface. To embark on the expedition, Eric Cordes will be using a submarine called Alvin.
So the Alvin, by the time we get on board, is already in operation. They're doing their dive checks, they're making sure it's completely safe, it's operational. So that's all going on as we turn up. So as soon as we start the day, as soon as we get on board, it's go. So they're just about to go out on a dive. As you can see here, the front of Alvin, you've got all the area where essentially these robotic arms can pick up samples, do soil samples here. They've got places where they can pick up specimens and keep them until they're on the way up. Just as a bit of filming equipment, it's pretty incredible. You have pan and tilt cameras up the top there. It's equipped with 4K camera. It's got cameras on the arms here. You can actually grab cameras with these arms and then place them on the sea floor and then be able to move around them. It's absolutely incredible. All of them, of course, have got their own pressure, specialized casing, so they can deal with the pressures at thousands and thousands of meters deep. So we haven't been able to take our own cameras into Alvin, so we are using the cameras that they've got. You know, we've been having to test that out as we go. Usually you'd do that back at base, you'd do that before you would arrive. But it's still just a challenge just to try and work that out and make sure that we get it right, because Eric is only going down once. So if it goes wrong, then we could have a problem.
With final checks complete, Alvin is ready to start its mission exploring the seamounts.
So Eric's just left now. He's going to be down there for about 8 hours. I just can't wait to see what he comes back with. It's going to be amazing.
Watch Blue Planet live to find out the results of Alvin's deep sea dive.
That's it for today. Don't forget Blue Planet Live on BBC One tonight.
And we're going to be back tomorrow, the same time, but from Scotland, for our final Blue Planet UK. See you then.
In our final programme, I delve into the deep of our British oceans.
We're actually looking at an area 1.5 kilometres deep.
We learn about one of the more secretive species in UK waters.
I remember the very first time I saw a seahorse in the wild. Absolutely amazing.
Chris reveals why he has a passion for our coastline.
I feel a closeness to the sea because of the birds that are an intrinsic part of that environment.
And there's a sight to behold as herring return to Scotland's coast.
A great wall of herring going round and round me. It's fantastic.